Hello. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Westside Congregation online service. I am the Reverend Dr. Nancy Hitt, Consulting Minister for this congregation. Currently, we are only offering virtual services online in keeping with pandemic protocol. We promise to give you plenty of advance notice when we are able to return to on-site services. We will not rush to do this. Your health and safety are extraordinarily important to us. Our service this week is titled Ramadan for the Rest of Us. The Muslim celebration of Ramadan began this past Thursday, April 23rd, and will end on Saturday, May 23rd. It is the holiest month of the year for Muslims. Today, we will learn a little bit about the meaning of Ramadan in its Muslim context, and we will apply that meaning and principles derived from it to our own lived experience. Our service is based on Principle 2, Justice, Equity, and Compassion in Human Relations, and Source 3, Wisdom from the World's Religions, which inspires us in our ethical and spiritual life. In the unique circumstances of our current pandemic protocols, this is especially important. We hope you find help for coping with that in this program. Our program today is the combined effort of many people, most of whom are off screen right now. To those of you who have offered feedback and resource materials, thank you. To Jimmy Stevens, who tapes our service and then posts it online with all of the magic words in place so that you can participate as more than an observer, thank you. To Steve Poyani, who shows up faithfully to man the keyboard and strike the bell, which really helps with transitions in this format, thank you. If you have never attended services at Westside before, we welcome you to our video format and invite you to join us on site in the future when that is possible. We look forward to meeting you. I have several announcements for us this week. I want to remind you that our labyrinths are available for use at any time. Please maintain the proper 6-foot social distance as you use them. Also, Rio the dog still needs and appreciates the newspaper many of you have contributed for her. The bin is outside the social hall door. Please make sure that you replace the cover and the bricks to hold it down in our desert wind when you are done. We don't want to litter the desert. And lastly, I am very excited to report that our stewardship committee had its our first ever online Zoom meeting this past Wednesday. It was a great success. 6 of us conducted the committee's business. We laughed and worked together, and it was wonderful. While other venues like a group emailing will work, holding the meeting online offers an interactive and personal big difference. You all know that I actively resist technology, but I have to say that this is worth the effort, which was actually minimal. Basically, if I can do this, anyone can. So, I will be emailing and phoning you to try and arrange further meetings of this type. I would very much like to schedule a programming team meeting too. I would really like the opportunity for feedback and for future planning regarding these services with you. Please think about being willing and able to do this in the next week or two. I invite you now to pull your personal chalice or candle closer to you, to read the words for our chalice lighting as they appear on your screen with me, and to light yours at home as I light ours here. And as always, please be safe with fire. May our flame consume the dross from our minds and hearts. May we seek enlightenment by its brilliance and compassion by its warmth. May we become the people we are created to be. Shalom. Please join me now in affirming our community aspirations as the words appear on your screen. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Today, our moment for centering will draw on imagery from the poem we read together last week. In the poem, the goddess encourages us to let go of the pieces of ourself that are breaking away, to let go of our concern about always keeping everything the same. She reassures us that the process of change within ourselves is a healthy one. As we move into this time of reflection, I invite you to hold on to those thoughts as a framework as I speak. Sit comfortably wherever you are. Close your eyes or keep them open as you prefer. Focus your attention on your breathing. Breathing in fully and deeply. Breathing out tension and anxiety through your nose. In and out, fully and deeply. Let your mind go blank. Rest in the rhythm of your breath. Into that empty space, let an image of your changing self appear. Examine it. Take note of what is being let go of. Take note of what is growing. As you experience pieces of yourself falling away, remember, you are not falling apart, you are falling into place. You are becoming. Always, you are becoming yourself. You are in charge of this process. Let it happen for you creatively. Continue to observe your renewed self. Embrace this image, incomplete though it is. Affirm yourself in process and let yourself break like the dawn. It's a new day, a new you. Keep on as you return your focus to your breath, slowly, deeply, relaxing into your renewed self as you exhale, and return your awareness to your current surroundings and open your eyes when you are ready. Shalom. In these unusual and difficult times, it's often hard to acknowledge joy for fear of being perceived as frivolous. Nothing could be further from the truth. We need to name our joys more now than ever. We also may find ourselves hesitating to acknowledge concerns, fearing that it will sound like we're whining, since everyone is living under stressful and uncomfortable conditions in this pandemic. Again, not true. Naming both our joys and our concerns for what they are helps to keep them in perspective. It helps us to feel connected to each other at a time when our usual connections are not in place. So please, accept my thanks to those of you who have shared either a joy or a concern this week, and my encouragement to all of us that we be genuine about the circumstances of our lives. The fact is that despite the pandemic, life goes on as it always has, joys and concerns of all sorts included. I will share those that I am aware of with you in a moment, and then offer a brief meditation for our larger world before lighting our candle here. I invite you to bring your personal joys and concerns candle closer to you now, and as always, to be very safe with the open flame. Please join me now in spirit on behalf of Robert, who will be moving to a new extended care facility. When I have his new mailing address, I will post it via email to you. For Reverend Steve Finney, who continues to struggle to recover from the COVID-19 virus, and his wife Cynthia. Steve is a former pastor of this congregation. Lonnie has shared a mixture of bittersweet joys and concerns. Their house is being repaired after the fire claimed her craft room. Her daughter-in-law is hospitalized in Texas with a complicated pregnancy, hoping to delay delivery for a few more weeks. And Lonnie herself is comfortable and well cared for by hospice. Bobby, who remains at South Valley Care Center, where there is absolutely no record of any COVID-19 infection. Those of us who have family and friends who are essential workers at greater risk of infection than those who are able to shelter at home are. We remember Janet's son and daughter, and I add my son, an RN who has just been assigned to a COVID-19 ICU this past week. We are grateful for their willingness to work despite the personal risk, even as we worry about that risk at the same time. For those who are grieving at this time, grieving the loss of beloved friends and family from their lives, grieving the loss of meaningful pursuits, and struggling to cope with isolation and boredom, we hold concern. May we all find new ways of making sense of our lives. May we have the courage to try new things and the wisdom to release our investment in what used to be. For all of the changes in the world around us, for the confusing mixture of joy and concern as we hope for renewal and healthy growth, we lift our thoughts and prayers. As the nations around our world consider reopening, we hold concern that we not rush, neither that we drag our feet when so many have real need to work and learn at school and be together safely and meaningfully. May our concern motivate us to learn how to be careful of all life. May we find joy in doing things differently to support that effort. May we see ourselves falling into place, not falling apart, in the face of adapting to major changes. For all of these things, and for all that still fills our hearts and minds, we light our candles now. Shalom. I have a very special story for us today. It is titled Golden Domes and Silver Lanterns, and it was written by Hina Khan. This is the book, and here is how the story goes. This is a Muslim book of colors. Red is the rug Dad kneels on to pray, facing toward Mecca 5 times a day. Blue is the hijab Mom likes to wear. It's a scarf she uses to cover her hair. Gold is the dome of the mosque, big and grand. Beside it 2 towering minarets stand. White is a kufi, round and flat. Grandpa wears this traditional hat. Black is the ink that I use to draw the Arabic letters that spell Allah. Brown is a date, plump and sweet. During Ramadan, it's my favorite treat. Orange is the color of my henna designs. They cover my hands in leafy vines. Purple is an Eid gift just for me. I open it up and I love what I see. Yellow is the box we fill on Eid with gifts of zakat for those in need. Green is the Quran. I read with pride. Grandma explains the lessons inside. Silver is a fanus, a twinkling light, a shiny lantern that glows at night. All of the colorful things we've seen make up the world of my faith, my deen. And you should know that the word deen translates from Arabic to English to mean my way of life or religion. Now, Riley the rabbit told you a few weeks ago that he was going to be taking some time for a little vacation, and some of his friends would be checking in his place. And today, I expect you will be happy to meet, there we go. This is Ophelia. Oh, she's really just fixed on me here. I think she's a little shy, but there we go. We're just going to sit her right here and let her look out to all of you. Ophelia the owl is very wise, as most owls are. She has been flying all around the world, to the north, to the south, east and west, checking everything out and listening to see how wise we human beings are in our current circumstances. We had a little discussion about Ramadan. Yes, Ophelia and I did. And she informed me that she had collected several quotes that she thought might be helpful for us to know. So, I'm going to share those with you, and she is going to keep an eye on everything as we do this. The first quote, and all of these are designed to help us think about Ramadan in our own context. It goes like this. life is one large process of creation. Self-examination and introspection is simply to figure out what you want to create in this moment. That was said by Matthew Donnelly. And the second one goes like this. For the wise, yes, and Ophelia is very wise, for the wise have always known that no one can make much of his life until self-searching has become a regular habit, until he is able to admit and accept what he finds, and until he patiently and persistently tries to correct what is wrong. That was from Bill W. You may recognize Bill W. as the founder of AA. And lastly, okay, you ready for this one? It goes like this. We've all heard that the unexamined life is not worth living. But consider, too, that the unlived life is not worth examining. And that is a quote from Julia Cameron. So, while you're pondering that, I want to say thank you to my new friend Ophelia, who's waving goodbye, and she will be back in the future, I'm sure, and we will continue to benefit from her wisdom. Thank you so much. I would like to share with you now a reading from the back of our hymnal. It is number 518, and it is a prayer from the Ojibwe Nation here on our continent. It goes like this. Grandfather, look at our brokenness. We know that in all creation, only the human family has strayed from the sacred way. We know that we are the ones who are divided, and we are the ones who must come back together to walk in the sacred way. Grandfather, Sacred One, teach us love, compassion, and honor, that we may heal the earth and heal each other. Shalom. We began by noting that Ramadan is the holiest month of the year in the 12-cycle lunar calendar used by Muslim countries. In contrast to the Gregorian solar calendar, the lunar year varies from 354 to 355 days. As a result of following the lunar cycles, the months of the Muslim calendar are in a semi-fluid relationship with the solar calendar, all of which accounts for how and why Ramadan is not a fixed date. The month of Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar year. It is significant in that the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, received the revelation that became the Quran in the month of Ramadan. In fact, Muslims hold that all scripture was revealed during Ramadan, beginning with the scrolls of Abraham, the Torah, Psalms, Gospel, and Quran having been handed down on the 1st, the 6th, the 12th, and then either the 13th or the 18th, depending on how you do your research, and the 24th Ramadans, respectively. In keeping with the spirit of receiving a new revelation of a new way to be in relationship with the author of life and all that is, the month is marked by practices designed to invoke a new and better life. Common actions during Ramadan include fasting, prayer, charity, recitation of passages of the Quran, sexual abstinence, and increased vigilance over refraining from sinful behavior. At the end of the 29 to 30-day month of Ramadan, Eid al-Fitr, a feast to celebrate the end of the fast, occurs. Perhaps the most striking practice to non-Muslims during Ramadan is fasting. In a world in which food outlets and an all-you-can-eat buffet are a common sight, the idea of fasting is puzzling. Why? Why would anyone intentionally disrupt their eating pattern, refusing to eat or drink between sunrise and sunset for a whole month every year of their adult life? Well, actually, many religions encourage time-limited fasts. Ramadan is a time of spiritual reflection, self-improvement, and heightened devotion and worship. Muslims are expected to put more effort into following the teachings of Islam. The fast begins at dawn and ends at sunset. The act of fasting is said to redirect the heart away from worldly activities, its purpose being to cleanse the soul by freeing it from harmful impurities. Muslims believe that Ramadan teaches them to practice self-discipline, self-control, sacrifice, and empathy for those who are less fortunate, thus encouraging actions of generosity and compulsory charity. Fasting gives a person an opportunity to exercise self-discipline, to strengthen their will. Since Ramadan is not only a personal fast, it also draws people together. Ramadan is a communal fast. In some Muslim countries, it is illegal to either eat or drink in public during the daylight the whole month long. Everyone comes together to pray and realign themselves with all that is good, with Allah. And at the end of the day, the fast is broken, traditionally with 3 dates, in memory of the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, who is said to have broken his fast with 3 dates each evening. Families gather, neighbors and friends are invited, and joy prevails at the evening meal known as iftar. At the end of the month, when a crescent new moon has been sighted, the fast is over and is celebrated with Eid al-Fitr, the feast. It is forbidden to actually fast on Eid. You have to stop. It is an occasion of joy and thanksgiving for the bounty of Allah. Muslims from different locations have different local customs and traditions, from special foods to ritual baths to mark these holidays. They are a rich tradition, replete with complex layers of meaning. What it means to a person to fast during Ramadan often changes and grows over the course of their life, becoming richer and more meaningful over time. And yes, like any other human activity, it is completely possible to corrupt the celebration of Ramadan, either by belittling and invalidating it, or by imposing it aggressively on others. These human misuses notwithstanding, Ramadan has something in common with other religious traditions, with science, and with the lives that we're all living now in response to the pandemic. Think about this. Jews observe Yom Kippur with fasting. Christians have 40 days of Lent in which to fast. Hindus fast and Buddhists fast. Many tribal and earth-based religions In each instance, there is a desire to draw closer to the source of life, to seek life-changing revelation, and to recommit oneself to a life lived in harmony with all of creation and with the Creator, however that is envisioned. Examining oneself and assessing how one is doing in regard to these goals is a major feature of the fast. Unlike psychological eating disorders, the religious fast is a tool for spiritual enlightenment. The goal is to return to ordinary life with renewed purpose. Science tells us that fasting has some interesting effects on the human body, of which hunger is only one. For some people, clarity of thought, visions, and a unique experience of inspiration and oneness with the universe are also effects of fasting. I should also point out that fasting does not mean starvation. Starvation destroys life, whereas fasting is a tool to enhance it. All religious traditions that use fasting have guidelines for practitioners in regard to who may fast and how. For example, pregnant or nursing women, children, the elderly, those who are sick are all exempted from fasting during Ramadan and other religious rituals. So given the benefits of fasting, it's hard to see why it isn't more popular. But living as we do in a society in which many of the traditional religious practices are unsupported by cultural affirmation, fasting has fallen out of favor. Sadly, right along with it have gone self-examination and accountability. Our larger concern now is that no one judge us, including not we ourselves. In our efforts to affirm all people as equal, we have somehow neglected to consider that we are all also equally imperfect, each in our own personal and particular ways, of course. We are often so fearful of abuse and oppression that the mere idea that we should do anything is really difficult for us. Who said so? How do they know? What gives them that authority? Can they make me? How? What are the consequences if I don't do what I should? We've severely reduced the opportunities for anyone, ourselves included, to examine or critique or measure us up to anything, even to our own standards. Where once this was a common pastime, it's fallen out of favor. It might even be regarded as a sign of psychological distress. The "I'm okay, you're okay" ambiance doesn't leave much room for constructive self-critique. But without engaging meaningfully in that, how are we to build a better self, a better world? How are we to grow if we've already decided we're okay with where we're at? Part of the problem is seeing self-examination and self-acceptance as being diametrically opposed. They're really not. Let's think about that for just a minute. We can't genuinely accept the self that we have no real awareness of. We need to examine ourselves, to acknowledge our shortcomings in character and behavior in order to know who we really are. The good news is that this is not a static one-and-done process that we're then stuck with forevermore. We humans are totally capable of change and growth, and to know what is needed and then to pursue it is the height of human self-expression. Somehow, in our self-determination, we've actually given up on ourselves. Now, this is a really peculiar kind of catch-22 dilemma. We want to be individuals who are free to be ourselves, But in order to be sure we're doing that, we block any kind of self-examination that might lead us to recognize the need to change or improve who that self is. It's as if seeing ourselves accurately means that others will think less of us, respect us less, and oppress us more. We don't have any collective image for community. And I blame the Constitution. When our nation's Constitution was written, it was written to empower individual citizens as equal among themselves. It develops a structure to provide a people for whom that is the primary founding principle. In contrast to the monarchies of Europe and of Great Britain especially, this was a wonderful development. We will set aside for the moment the truth that the men in question were literally landowning white males. That's a problem of a different sort. A topic for another time. Let's focus for a moment on the inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are personal rights. In theory, one does not need to belong to any group or community, especially not a religious or political group or community, to claim these rights. Ever since that inspiring document was written, we have struggled to work out what it means and what that meaning looks like in the real world. And that's a good thing. It's a struggle well worth engaging in. Working to make that happen from shore to shore is a noble pursuit for our nation. But something is missing. Nothing in that document speaks to the realities of community. There are safeguards for the individual in regard to community, but nothing about healthy community itself, which leaves us without a rudder when it comes to one of the most important aspects of being human, relationships. Human beings require the nurture of other human beings to survive. While some of us are fiercely independent and self-sufficient, we all enter the world in need of protection and nurture from other people. Even in adulthood, few of us are truly isolated hermits. We need the social connections of other people to help us ground and grow ourselves. It's very hard to know who we are if we are not engaged in human relationships. Our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness are integrated with the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness of other people, friends, family, and strangers alike. So where is the mention in our founding document of the need to participate meaningfully and constructively in human communities? Now, those of you who'd like to dismiss this point or point out that it's implicitly shaped by the rest of the document and its amendments, you have a point, but I'm going to argue it's a blunt one. The serious focus on the individual shapes our national character and the way we think. These days, it's confusing. We hear our fellow Americans proposing radically different responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. If our life together is all about the individual, then why are there regulations right now that limit what each of us as individuals can do? Why is it that the government officials find themselves trying to teach us that we are connected to one another in ways that make it imperative to limit our individuality for the good of the national community? Some of you may have seen either the program or the clips online this past week in which a very sincere reporter interviewed New York Governor Andrew Cuomo this week. In the course of her questions, she repeatedly asked the governor to explain why people couldn't exercise their personal rights in the way that they wanted to. The governor repeatedly responded that the consequence of not curtailing individual freedom was death. The reporter continued to question him, finally asking if a fundamental right to work exists if the government can't get its citizens the money that they needed in a timely manner. The governor continued to respond to the reporter, citing public health concerns as primary. The consequence of not protecting the public health, he said, was death. Nothing that individuals were currently struggling with could beat that. It was pretty clear that the reporter disagreed with the governor's priorities. And it occurred to me that the governor was describing the need to sacrifice one's individual personal rights for the good of the greater community. And the reporter was having none of it. And when I thought about it, I recognized that she was making perfect sense from the perspective of the individual. But she had no awareness of or respect for the larger community. Commenters online suggested that the government should just give people the facts and then let them come to their own decisions. They felt that their personal freedom and liberty demanded that. And you know what? I can't even disagree with that. It's built right into our Constitution. But I also know that that is wrong. It's not enough to affirm the liberty of the individual without dealing with the realities of community, because community is part of being human. This pandemic is challenging us and our systems in more ways than we had anticipated. It's not just about PPE and test kits and masks and vaccines. Those things are hugely important, but they are nowhere near all of it. We're being challenged on what it means to be human and free and live in community at a time and in a way that we never saw coming. We need to rethink most, if not all, of our systems. Economics, education, travel, recreation, all of those things and more have heavy community components. Sure, they affect individuals, but more than that, they affect individuals in community. So here's where Ramadan comes in. Ramadan is about fasting and examining one's own conscience, motives, and behavior. I figure you're probably seeing the parallels already. We're all fasting from many things. We are fasting from our customary work and play and travel and education. We're fasting from each other, from human contact that ordinarily brings meaning into our lives. We're all fasting together. So let's do a little self-examination together, too. We are all part of the systems around us that aren't functioning right now, but that we want to bring back in some way when it's safe to do so. So, from now until then, and I hope way beyond that, let's use this time to take a really hard look at what it means to be living together in community. Let's work at being better people, building healthier systems and communities. Spend some time trying to understand how people who don't think like you at all are making sense of things. And then try to find points of connection that build community, healthy community in which no one is oppressed or minimized or ostracized. This Ramadan, let's take a long, hard look at ourselves without all the usual distractions that we're currently fasting from, and let's reshape ourselves and our world. Let's balance individual with community. It is not an either-or proposition. It's both and. It's a balancing act. It takes courage and determination and a belief in your own worth to do that as you promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person on this planet, even, or perhaps especially, when they intrude on your individual rights. And that is Ramadan for the rest of us. Assalamu alaikum. Now, once again, I invite you to post your questions and comments either on our website below this video, or you may email me directly at ministeruuwc@gmail.com. Please feel free to comment on both the structure of our video and the content of our service. This really does help us. And now I invite you to join me. The words will appear on your screen as we extinguish our chalice together. In these rapidly changing and risky times, may we embrace the light from our chalice and hold it in our hearts. May what we have seen and heard, felt and learned in its presence become part of the driving force of who we are. Shalom. As the world around us changes in the twinkling of an eye, let us remember we are not falling apart. We are falling into place. A new place in which we may become even more of who we are meant to be. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere you go, whoever you are with, and however you have need. Shalom.